So India has taken some pretty extreme steps and escalated a conflict with Pakistan. So I want to show you here a BBC clip about a region called Kashmir. And let me give you just a little bit of the backstory before we jump into the clip. So there's an Indian Kashmir and there's a Pakistani Kashmir. And the region that's technically part of India is basically semi-autonomous, and they're self-governing according to an old agreement. Well, India just decided, we're going to rip up that agreement, and we're going to say you're no longer semi-autonomous, and they went as far as to crack down and declare like martial law and have this authoritarian crackdown where there's no phone, there's no internet, they shut off the power, and they basically have blocked this region from the world. So it's kind of like a brazen crackdown and just an attempt at total and complete occupation and domination and control. Now, this was the best picture that I could find. I don't know how well you guys could see it from there, but you see India, and then you see we have Kashmir and Jammu. Forgive me for pronouncing these like a white boy. I think it's called Kashmir, like the cloth. I seriously don't know how to pronounce these properly. But anyway, you have Kashmir and Jammu, and you could see that there's Pakistan-administered Kashmir. So that's technically part of Pakistan. And then you have Indian Kashmir. And basically, India has said, even though we let this region be semi-autonomous in the past, well, we're taking away that now, and we're sending the military there, and we're going to crack down. So really, really, really bad situation unfolding. Now, having said all of that, let's take a look at the clip from BBC, and then we'll discuss further.
India's government has made a significant move to take direct control of the state of Kashmir. It will try to revoke a part of the constitution which gives India's only Muslim-majority state the right to run its own affairs. Opposition parties have called this one of the darkest days for Indian democracy, as the government proposed to revoke the special status enjoyed by Jammu and Kashmir. Chaotic scenes in Parliament, as you can see. Home Minister Amit Shah making the announcement. Massive protests happening there. Article 370, which gives Jammu and Kashmir more autonomy than any other Indian state, is sensitive because it is the basis on which Kashmir joined India. Let's take you straight to Yogita Lamai, who joins us now from Delhi. Yogita, just tell us more about this, what is a stunning development, really.
Well, so this is an article, a part of the Indian constitution. And, you know, as you said, this was a promise made by India to Kashmir at the time of partition, because at that time, Kashmir was a princely state. Both India and Pakistan wanted it to be a part of, each country. And India said to Kashmir that, you know, if Kashmir becomes a part of India, then it will have this special status. So it's an independence over most things except for defense, communications and external affairs. And that's essentially what has been done away with today by the government. They've moved to revoke that. Once the president signs it, it will come into effect. And really what's being questioned, and the outrage that you saw there, is because many people are saying this is unconstitutional. If a part of the constitution has to be changed, then why was it not voted on by MPs?
So, Yogita, why is the government doing this?
Well, this was one of their big election promises. It's actually been on the ruling BJP's agenda for a very long time now. But it was one of the big election promises, in the 2019 polls that just went by. And many say, critics of the move to revoke this article say that this is part of the Hindu Nationalist Party's plan to change the demographics of India's only Muslim majority state.
What is the reaction likely to be in Kashmir itself?
Well, it's very hard to get any information out of Kashmir. I mean, if you see what's happened in the past few days, it's really unprecedented. Internet and phone services are completely cut off, very hard to reach anyone there. Last night, major politicians in the region were placed under house arrest. In the past week, tens of thousands of extra troops have been sent there. Section 144 is imposed, which basically means that more than 5 people cannot gather in one place at a time. So protests, public rallies, meetings cannot be held. And with people not being able to communicate with each other, it's very hard right now to find out what the reaction is like. But it's quite clear that the government was expecting protests. Every time Section 370 or anything about it has come up, there have been protests in Kashmir. So, you can be certain that there is anger simmering in many parts of the region, although it's not on display yet.
And briefly, Yogita, we've seen tension really escalating recently between India and Pakistan. What reaction have we had from Islamabad about this move?
Well, Islamabad has condemned this move. They've called it unconstitutional. You've even seen protests actually, in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir against this move. And that was, again, a reaction that's, possibly expected because these are two countries that are fighting over the region. They both say they both stake claim to the whole of the region. So India trying to now tighten its grip over the part of Kashmir that its control is bound to be condemned by Pakistan.
So, just so everybody knows, I had to learn a lot about this yesterday before commenting on it, and I can tell you that every single news segment that I watched on this, massively downvoted. And you go to the comments and you realize very quickly that there's like a concerted effort of pro-Modi trolling out there. So it's like a guarantee anything that's even mildly critical of what the Indian government is doing here, there's just like a whole troll army that massively downvotes you and acts like you're being totally unreasonable and you don't understand the situation and how dare you and so on and so forth. So I just want to warn everybody in advance because, I don't know the situation. Perhaps I escaped that trend, but it's very likely that this video that you're watching right now is massively downvoted and you're like, wow, that's weird. Kyle didn't really say anything controversial or strange or I don't understand. Well, now you know why. Because it's a trend all throughout YouTube. Anything even mildly critical of Modi and the Indian government here, it's just nonstop downvotes. So anyway, having said that, I put that aside. Here's my totally banal commentary on this. If you had a situation in Kashmir which was basically it's a semi-autonomous region and you had relative peace and stability there. Why on earth would you change that? Why on earth would you do anything to move us away from that relative peace and stability? Now, I don't know. Maybe there's a very strong, freedom movement in Kashmir where they want to be their own independent state. I have no idea what the numbers are, and if you polled people in Kashmir, what percentage of them would say, hey, I want to be part of the state of Pakistan, and what percentage of them would say, no, I want to be part of the state of India, and what percentage of them would say, no, we want to be our own country of Kashmir. I don't know what the percentages are. I've never seen polling on it, but having said all that, if the state of affairs prior to this was, it's a segmented region, a bifurcated region. Part of it's controlled by Pakistan, part of it's controlled by India. But the Indian side was semi-autonomous, and that led to relative peace and stability. There's literally no reason that's non-ideological to ruin that. So in other words, what I mean by that is, this does kind of show pretty clearly that Modi is a committed Hindu nationalist, and I think the goal is to reassert control over a Muslim-majority region. And I think that there are parallels here to Israel-Palestine. Many people have pointed this out. This now it's starting to look a lot like the Israel-Palestine situation. What I would have said from the beginning is, hey man, leave it be. If there's relative peace and stability, even though we're in this weird middle ground situation where it's like semi-autonomous, part of it's with India, part of it's with Pakistan, whatever it is, if there's peace and stability, leave it alone. leave it alone. But Modí and his merry band of Hindu nationalists couldn't do that, and here's how you know they're wrong, by the way. Here's how you know they're wrong. Why do you have to do an authoritarian crackdown if what you're doing is, perfectly moral and reasonable? Why do you have to cut off all electronic, why do you have to cut off the phone and the internet and the power to the region? Why do you have to do that? If what you're doing is so, welcome and so wonderful and such a positive thing, why would you have to do that? Why would you have to implement really draconian rules of, hey, here's a curfew, and we're not allowing any of the leaders from Kashmir to go out in the street? Like, why would you have to do all that if what you're doing is like, this, bro, totally reasonable, totally expected, it's something they campaigned on, so it's all good? If that was the case, you wouldn't have to do like martial law and crack down and do an authoritarian, and have an authoritarian system where you take away people's freedom. You wouldn't have to do that now, would you? So, yeah, this is not good. And listen, this is one of those instances where, let's be honest, man, I don't think Trump and his merry band of neocon thugs are intelligent enough to deal with a situation like this. Also because, there's a history in the United States of we just default side with our allies no matter what the hell they do. That's why we sit there and pat Netanyahu on the back and rearm him as he massacres Palestinians left and right. So we have a history of that, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Israel, and one of our top allies is India. So it's very likely that this Trump government, we're just going to sit back, let Modí do whatever he wants to do, not know how to apply reasonable political pressure to try to ameliorate the situation, and that's terrible. So, like, the relative peace and stability and security is threatened now because of the ambitions of an authoritarian Hindu nationalist. And our government is definitely not intelligent enough, nor do they have the will to try to fix this situation with negotiation and diplomacy and mediate it in a responsible way. Not at all. I do not trust Trump's intelligence to deal with this. And who are Trump's foreign policy advisors? John Bolton? You trust that guy? That guy would just be like, all right, who do we invade? Like, that's going to be his addition, like, to the conversation on this. Is going to be, all right, but who are we going to bomb? Like, that's all he can say. That's all he knows how to do. So this is where you, like, really would hope for elder statesmen who can step in and work out, some sort of an agreement here. But I have zero faith in our government to do that. And it's really sad, and it's really embarrassing, and it's really pathetic. And I think people in Kashmir are suffering as a result of it. So anyway, that's what's happening now. And it only heightens tensions with Pakistan and India, and that is not good.